By the time my mother's 70 birthday candles were lit, my children would already be gone, their untouched plates still sitting beside the kitchen door like evidence of a crime no one wanted to name. But when we pulled into Evelyn Parker's driveway that evening, I still believed the night could be survived. I still believed I could get through one more family gathering by smiling at the right moments, swallowing the familiar ache, and reminding myself that my children were loved enough at home to survive being overlooked somewhere else. That was the lie I told myself whenever my mother's house appeared at the end of the road, glowing like a promise it had never kept. My name is Hannah Miller, and for 36 years I had been trained to mistake silence for peace. I knew how to walk into my mother's world without taking up too much space. I knew how to praise Caleb's achievements before anyone asked about mine. I knew how to laugh when a cruel comment was dressed up as a joke, how to change the subject when my mother's praise landed on one child and skipped over another, how to gather plates, fold napkins, and make myself useful when being loved was not available. But that night was not supposed to be about me. It was my mother's 70th birthday, the kind of milestone she had been planning for months with the seriousness other people reserved for weddings. She had rented white table linens, ordered flowers from the expensive florist downtown, hired a photographer, and asked me, as usual, to prepare the family slideshow because I was so organized. In my mother's language, organized meant obedient. It meant I could be trusted to make her look generous, elegant, and beloved, even when the truth had always been less flattering. Mark parked our car behind a row of polished SUVs and looked at me before turning off the engine. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded too quickly. "It's just dinner." He did not argue, but his eyes moved to the rearview mirror where Lily and Ethan sat in the back seat clutching their gifts. Lily, 8 years old and endlessly hopeful in a way that made me ache, held a drawing she had made of the whole family sitting around one long table. She had colored every chair a different shade and written Grandma at the head in purple marker, with little hearts above the word. Ethan, 6 and serious about anything involving presents, held a small handmade card with both hands. He had written, "Happy birthday, Grandma. I love you" in uneven letters and drawn a cake with 70 candles, because he thought the number would impress her. "Do you think Grandma will put my picture on the fridge?" Lily asked. I turned around and forced my face to soften before my heart could answer. "She should," I said. "It's beautiful." Ethan looked down at his card. "Do you think 70 candles is too many?" I ran out of space. "So some are behind the cake." Mark smiled at him. "That makes it realistic, buddy." Ethan grinned, and for a second I let myself believe the night might be gentle. My mother's house stood at the top of the circular driveway, all warm windows and white columns, with lanterns lining the walkway and a gold banner across the front porch that read, "Happy 70th, Evelyn." It looked like the home of a woman who had built a family worth celebrating. That was my mother's greatest talent. She knew how to arrange appearances so carefully that people mistook them for truth. The front door opened before we reached it, and Evelyn appeared in a midnight blue dress with pearls at her throat and her silver hair swept back as if a photographer might be waiting behind us. "Hannah," she said, smiling the polite smile she saved for guests she wanted others to see her welcoming. "You made it. Happy birthday, Mom," I said, leaning in to hug her. Her arms touched my shoulders briefly, then released. Lily stepped forward before I could prepare her. "Happy birthday, Grandma. I made you this." She lifted the drawing with both hands. Ethan held out his card. "And I made this. It has all the candles." My mother glanced down. "How sweet," she said, taking both pieces of paper. She did not open Ethan's card. She did not look long enough at Lily's drawing to notice the table, the chairs, the tiny people Lily had carefully placed beside one another. She set them on the hall table beneath a crystal vase and turned her head as headlights swept across the window. Her face changed instantly. I hated that I still noticed. I hated that my body still reacted before my mind did, tightening in the old places, bracing for the old pattern. "Caleb's here," she said. And the warmth that had been missing from her voice suddenly arrived. My brother entered with his wife Stephanie and their son Aiden, who was 10, and already walked into rooms as if they had been arranged in his honor. "There's my brilliant boy," my mother cried, stepping past Ethan so quickly he shifted back against Mark's leg. She wrapped both arms around Aiden and held him like a treasure returned from war. "I saved the best seat in the house for you." Aiden smiled, not surprised, only pleased. Caleb laughed and kissed our mother on the cheek. "Happy birthday, Mom. Now it feels like a celebration," she said. The words were light, but they landed heavily. Lily looked at me, then at the drawing on the hall table. I placed a hand on her shoulder and guided her inside. The house was dazzling. White roses filled every room. Candles flickered along the mantel. A pianist played soft music near the living room windows. A long dining table stretched through the formal dining room, set with gold-rimmed plates, crystal glasses, folded linen napkins, and small ivory name cards written in careful calligraphy. Family photos stood on easels near the fireplace, each one chosen to support the myth my mother loved most. Evelyn surrounded by grateful children and exceptional grandchildren. Relatives greeted us with hugs and compliments. My Aunt Linda told Lily she looked pretty. My cousin Rachel asked Ethan about school. For a few minutes, ordinary kindness floated around us, and I nearly relaxed. Then I saw the children's table. It was not really a children's table the way most families used the phrase. This one sat in the center of the dining room, directly beside my mother's chair, decorated with miniature flower arrangements, gold chargers, folded napkins tied with ribbon, and little gift boxes placed on each plate. Above it, a small sign rested in a silver frame. The grandchildren table. My mother had mentioned something about a special table for the kids, but I had pictured crayons, paper crowns, maybe cupcakes. This looked ceremonial. It looked intentional. Aiden's name card stood at the place closest to my mother's chair, written larger than the others. Mason, Sophie, June, Carter, Emma. One by one, I read the names of the grandchildren. I read them again. My hands grew cold. Lily's name was not there. Ethan's name was not there. I looked around the table, scanning every plate, every ribbon, every chair, hoping I had missed 2 cards tucked behind a centerpiece. Nothing. Mark came to stand beside me, and I felt him understand before he spoke. "Hannah," he said quietly. I shook my head once, not because it was fine, but because I needed one more second before anger entered the room wearing my face. Across the dining room, my mother stood with Caleb and Aiden near the fireplace, pointing proudly toward the table. "This year, I wanted to honor the grandchildren who have really made this family proud," she said, loud enough for nearby relatives to hear. 70 years teaches you that legacy matters." A few people nodded, unsure whether they were supposed to applaud. Aiden walked to his seat and touched the gift box on his plate. "Is this mine too?" "Of course," my mother said. "You earned something special." Lily moved closer to me. "Mom," she whispered. "Maybe ours are on the other side?" Ethan had already begun looking. He walked carefully around the table, reading names with the seriousness of a child trying to solve a puzzle adults had created. He checked the corners. He checked the 2 empty spaces near the wall that were not set with plates. Then he looked toward the back of the room, near the kitchen entrance, where a small folding table had been placed beside a stack of extra napkins, pitchers of water, and a basket of rolls. 2 plain paper plates sat there. No flowers, no ribbons, no name cards, no gift boxes. Just 2 chairs small enough for children who were not expected to be seen. My son stared at that table for a long time. Lily followed his gaze, and the color left her face. I wanted to move, to speak, to tear the sign from the silver frame, but I also knew the danger of reacting before I fully understood. My mother had built too many traps out of manners. If I raised my voice too soon, she would make the story about my tone instead of her cruelty. So I walked toward her slowly, every step feeling like it belonged to a different version of myself. "Mom," I said, keeping my voice calm, "where are Lily and Ethan supposed to sit?" My mother turned, her smile still in place but thinner now. "Oh, I had to make some adjustments. There wasn't enough room at the main table." I looked at the 2 empty decorative chairs near the piano, then back at the long table where the centerpiece took up enough space for 4 children. "There is room." Her eyes flicked toward Caleb. Then to the photographer adjusting his camera by the doorway. "Hannah, please don't start. It's my birthday." I felt Lily's fingers slip into mine. Ethan stood beside Mark, still holding his unopened card. "I'm not starting anything," I said. "I'm asking why every grandchild has a place card except my 2 children." The room softened into silence. Not complete silence, but the kind that spreads when people keep pretending not to listen while listening to every word. My mother's smile finally disappeared. "The main table is for children who have had a very impressive year." For a moment, no one moved. Even the pianist seemed to press the keys more softly. I stared at my mother, waiting for her to laugh, to soften, to say she had phrased it badly. She did not. "What exactly are you saying about my children?" I asked. "I'm saying children need to learn that recognition is earned," she replied, her voice elegant and cold. "Aiden has worked very hard. Some of the others have too. It's healthy for children to understand that effort matters." Lily's hand tightened around mine. Ethan looked down at his card, the 70 candles suddenly ridiculous in his small hands. Then he lifted his face toward me, confused in a way that broke something I had spent years trying to protect. "Mom," he asked softly, "where are our name cards?" Ethan's question was so soft that it should have been swallowed by the room, but somehow it landed everywhere. "Where are our name cards?" No one answered. My mother looked at him for half a second, then away, as if the question had come from an inconvenient object instead of a 6-year-old child holding a handmade birthday card with 70 crooked candles drawn across the front. Lily's fingers tightened around mine until I felt her nails through my skin. I looked at my mother and waited, because there was still one last door she could open. She could laugh and say it was a mistake. She could call someone over and ask for 2 more chairs. She could kneel down in front of my children and say, "Of course you belong here." But Evelyn Parker had spent too many years being protected from the consequences of her choices to recognize the final moment before cruelty becomes unforgivable. She straightened the pearl bracelet on her wrist and said, "They can sit at the smaller table tonight. It's not a punishment. It's simply how I arrange things." Mark's voice came from beside me, low and controlled. "Beside the kitchen?" My mother's eyes flashed. She did not like men questioning her, especially men who were not Caleb. "It's a perfectly fine table." "Then let Aiden sit there," I said. The room became so quiet I could hear the camera strap creak against the photographer's shoulder. Caleb's head snapped toward me. Stephanie's lips parted. Aiden, who had already settled proudly into the seat beside my mother's chair, looked up as if someone had suggested taking away a crown. My mother's face hardened, but her voice stayed smooth, the way it always did when she wanted to make me look emotional, by refusing to become emotional herself. "Do not be ridiculous, Hannah." "Why is that ridiculous?" I asked. "If the little table is perfectly fine, then there should be no problem switching seats." Caleb stepped forward, shaking his head like I had embarrassed him personally. "Come on. It's Mom's birthday. Don't turn a seating arrangement into a war." It became a war when 2 children were sent to sit beside extra napkins, while every other grandchild got a name card and a gift box. "They're kids," he said. "They don't care about things like that." Ethan looked up at him, still holding his card. "I care," he whispered. Caleb stopped. For 1 second, shame crossed his face, but it vanished almost instantly, replaced by irritation because shame was uncomfortable and irritation was easier. "I didn't mean it like that," he muttered. My mother took a step closer, lowering her voice as if a quieter insult would be less visible. "Hannah, you are making this ugly." I glanced toward the small folding table. 2 plain plates, 2 plain chairs, no flowers, no ribbon, no tiny gift boxes. Then I looked at the shining grandchildren table, where Aiden's name card sat closest to my mother, written in larger letters than the rest, beside a wrapped box tied with gold string. "No, Mom," I said. "You made it ugly. I'm just refusing to decorate it." A murmur moved through the dining room. Aunt Linda looked down at her wine glass. Rachel stared at the floor. Marissa, Caleb's ex-wife, stood near the wall with June, her daughter, whose name card was at the table but whose face looked deeply uncomfortable. I saw recognition in Marissa's eyes, the tired kind that said this was not the first time she had watched Evelyn rank children in public, but like everyone else, she had learned to survive my mother by staying quiet. My mother turned her attention to Lily, softening her voice with a sweetness that made my stomach tighten. "Lily, sweetheart, you do not mind sitting over there for one dinner, do you? It will be fun. You and Ethan can have your own little table." Lily looked at the folding table, then at the beautiful drawing still lying unopened on the hall table. "Is it because my story did not win at school?" she asked. My breath caught. "What?" My mother blinked. Lily swallowed hard. "Aiden won a math award. Grandma said the table is for impressive kids. My story only got picked for the class board, not the whole school." That was the moment I saw exactly what had happened. My mother had not merely placed my children at a different table. She had translated love into achievement in front of them. She had made belonging measurable. She had made a chair into a verdict. Ethan's eyes filled with sudden panic. "I got a good behavior sticker," he said quickly, as if presenting evidence to a judge. "I got 3 this month. Mrs. Carver said I was helpful." Mark closed his eyes for a second, and when he opened them, the softness was gone. "That is enough," he said. My mother bristled. "Excuse me? They are not auditioning for a seat at your table." Caleb rolled his eyes. This is insane. Aiden, still protected by every adult who had taught him he belonged at the center, leaned toward Mason and said loudly enough for us to hear, "Maybe next year they can sit here if they do something important." The sentence sliced through the room. Mason looked terrified. June lowered her eyes. Stephanie whispered, "Aiden," but she did not tell him he was wrong. Caleb did not correct him. My mother did not correct him. She only pressed her lips together, irritated that a child had said the quiet part too clearly. Lily stepped behind me, Ethan's card bent in his hands. That small bend in the paper did what years of insults had not done. It broke the last thread. I looked at every adult in that room, every person who had heard a 10-year-old tell two younger children they were not important enough to sit with the family, and still waited for me to be the problem. I thought about all the years I had protected these people from discomfort. I thought about birthday dinners where Caleb's failures were called phases, and my exhaustion was called attitude. I thought about Christmas mornings where my children thanked my mother for cheap, generic gifts while Aiden opened expensive boxes with his name written in gold. I thought about the slideshow waiting on my laptop, the one my mother had asked me to prepare, full of photographs that proved what everyone in this room already knew and pretended not to see. Then I knelt in front of Lily and Ethan, lowering myself until my face was level with theirs. "Listen to me carefully," I said. "You did nothing wrong. You do not have to win an award to belong in this family. You do not have to earn a chair. You do not have to prove you are important." Lily's eyes spilled over. Ethan whispered, "Are we leaving?" I nodded. "Yes, sweetheart, we are leaving." My mother made a sharp sound behind me. "Absolutely not. You are not walking out before dinner. The photographer is here, the cake is ready, and everyone came for my birthday." I stood and turned to face her. "Then enjoy your birthday with the grandchildren you chose." Her face flushed. "Do not twist this. I did not exclude them. You gave every child a place card except mine. There was limited space. You gave every child a gift box except mine. Those were symbolic. You called it the table for children who made the family proud." Her jaw tightened. "Because some children need motivation." I felt Mark move closer, but I lifted one hand slightly, asking him to let me finish. "My children are not projects for your insecurity. They are not props in your legacy speech, and they will never beg for a seat at a table built to shame them." The words hit harder than shouting would have. My mother's eyes widened, not with pain, but with fury that I had said something memorable in front of witnesses. "You have always been jealous of Caleb," she snapped. There it was, the old family script. The accusation she used whenever I refused to accept less. I almost laughed because for the first time in my life it sounded small. "No," I said. I was tired of being told that noticing favoritism was worse than favoritism itself. Caleb stepped between us slightly. "Hannah, stop. You are making my son feel bad." I turned to him slowly. "Good. Maybe for the first time tonight, someone should." Stephanie gasped, but I did not apologize. Feeling bad after hurting someone is not the same as being harmed. It is called learning. Aiden looked confused now, less confident, as if the room had shifted beneath him. I did not hate him. I hated what they had taught him. I hated that a child had been raised to believe another child's humiliation was proof of his own importance. Mark took Ethan's coat from the hallway closet. I took Lily's. My mother followed us, her heels clicking against the polished floor. "If you leave now, do not expect me to smooth this over with the family." I helped Ethan into his coat. "That is perfect, because I am done being smoothed over." Lily slipped her arms into her sleeves and wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. My mother saw the tears then, really saw them, and for one brief second something like uncertainty crossed her face. But pride moved faster. "Lily," she said, reaching toward her, "you are being very dramatic, just like your mother." I stepped between them so quickly my mother's hand froze in the air. "Do not speak to her like that." My voice was quiet, but even Caleb took a step back. "Do not teach my daughter that pain is drama just because you caused it." My mother's mouth opened, then closed. The photographer lowered his camera completely. Somewhere behind us, the pianist stopped playing. Ethan looked at the hall table. "Can I take my card back?" he asked. My mother looked offended, as if even that small request was a theft. I walked to the table, picked up Lily's drawing and Ethan's card, and handed them back. Lily hugged her drawing to her chest. Ethan stared at his card for a moment, then folded it carefully in half, hiding the candles inside. At the front door, My mother's voice sharpened one last time. "You are ruining my 70th birthday." I turned back and saw the room behind her. The flowers, the candles, the shining table, the little gift boxes, the relatives frozen in their expensive clothes, the children watching with wide eyes, the folding table by the kitchen waiting like a confession. "No," I said. "You ruined it when you decided 2 children had to earn a place in their own family." Then Mark opened the door, cold air rushed in, and I walked out with my children before the cake was cut, leaving my mother standing in the perfect house she had decorated around an ugly truth. The night outside my mother's house felt colder than it had any right to feel, but at least the cold was honest. It did not smile while cutting you. It did not call cruelty motivation. It did not set 2 children beside a kitchen door and then pretend the insult was a lesson. Mark opened the back door of the car and helped Ethan climb in, because my son was still clutching his folded birthday card with both hands as if letting go of it would make the whole evening real. Lily slid into the seat beside him with her drawing pressed flat against her chest, the picture of our family sitting together at one long table now looking almost painful in its innocence. Behind us, through the glowing windows, I could still see movement inside my mother's dining room. Relatives shifted around the table. Someone reached for a wine glass. The photographer stood uncertainly near the fireplace. The birthday cake was probably being uncovered, candles waiting, the perfect family moment delayed, but not cancelled. Because people like my mother always believed beauty could cover rot if the lighting was soft enough. Mark closed Ethan's door gently, then came around to the driver's side. He did not speak until we had pulled away from the house and the white columns disappeared behind the trees. "Are they okay?" he asked quietly, though we both knew the answer. I looked in the rearview mirror. Lily was staring out the window. Ethan was staring at his card. Neither of them cried. That frightened me more than tears would have. Crying meant the pain was moving. Silence meant it had found somewhere to sit. We drove for almost 10 minutes through dark suburban roads lined with winter lawns and porch lights before Ethan finally spoke. His voice was so small it barely reached the front seat. "Mom?" I turned as much as the seatbelt allowed. "Yes, baby." He looked up at me, and I saw the question before I heard it. "Are we not good enough for the family table?" Mark's hand tightened on the steering wheel. Lily's chin trembled, but she kept looking out the window. Something inside me went very still. The same stillness I had felt in that dining room, when Aiden said maybe next year my children could sit at the main table if they did something important. I had heard cruel things before. I had survived a childhood of them. But there is a special kind of pain that arrives when your child repeats the lessons someone else tried to carve into them. "Pull over," I said. Mark did immediately, guiding the car to the curb beneath a street lamp in a quiet neighborhood where no one knew that a family had just broken open a few miles away. I unbuckled and turned fully toward the back seat. "Listen to me carefully," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady because this moment needed a mother, not a wounded daughter. "You are good enough, both of you. You were good enough before we walked into that house and you are good enough now. You do not have to win awards to belong. You do not have to impress Grandma to be loved. And you never, ever have to earn a chair in your own family." Ethan blinked hard. "Then why did she put us by the kitchen?" Lily asked before I could say more. Her voice was not angry, it was worse. It was tired in a way no 8-year-old voice should ever be. I could have lied. I could have said Grandma was confused, that the table arrangement was a mistake, that adults sometimes say things they do not mean. I had been raised on those lies. I knew how easily they slid into a child's heart and built a room where self-blame could live for years. I would not give that room to my children. "Because Grandma was unfair," I said. "And because she has been unfair for a long time. Tonight, she made a choice that hurt you, and I should have stopped her sooner." Mark turned slightly toward me, and I felt his sorrow beside mine. Lily looked down at her drawing. "I drew everyone together," she whispered. "I know, but she did not even look." Ethan unfolded his card, stared at the crowded candles, then folded it again, more sharply this time. "I thought 70 candles would make her happy." I reached back and took his little hand. "Your card was kind. Her reaction was not your fault." He nodded, but not like he believed me yet. Children do not release shame simply because a parent tells them to. Shame has claws. It holds on until love proves, over and over, that it lied. We drove home after that in a silence that felt different from the one before. It was still heavy, but now it had direction. When we got inside, our house looked painfully ordinary. Sneakers by the door, a stack of mail on the counter, Lily's crayons scattered across the coffee table. Ethan's toy dinosaurs lined up on the stairs from some battle he had abandoned before we left. It was not polished like my mother's house. No white roses, no pianist, no crystal glasses. But the moment I closed the door behind us, Ethan took a full breath, and I realized ordinary could be holy when it was safe. Mark helped the children change into pajamas while I stood in the kitchen holding Lily's drawing. The paper showed Grandma at the head of a long table, smiling under a chandelier, with all of us sitting close together. Lily had drawn herself between Ethan and me. She had drawn Aiden beside Caleb. She had drawn my mother's hands open on the tabletop like she was welcoming everyone. I stared at those open hands until my vision blurred. A few minutes later, Lily came into the kitchen in her pajamas and saw me holding it. She did not ask for it back. Instead, she took a pencil from the counter and, very carefully, drew 2 faint lines through the chairs where she and Ethan had been sitting in the picture. Not hard, not angrily, just enough to mark what she had learned. "Sweetheart," I said, but my voice failed me. She looked up. "Can I make a new one tomorrow? With our table?" I pulled her into my arms and held her so tightly she made a small sound of surprise before melting against me. "Yes," I whispered, "we will make a new one." After we tucked them in, Ethan asked if he and Lily could sleep in the same room. Mark moved his sleeping bag beside Lily's bed without question. I stood in the doorway watching my children whisper to each other in the dark, and anger moved through me like something clean and bright. Not wild anger. Not the kind that breaks dishes or screams through walls. This was different. This anger organized itself. It started opening drawers in my mind, pulling out years of memories I had filed under normal because calling them what they were would have cost too much. Mark found me later at the kitchen table, my laptop open, the glow of the screen reflecting off my face. "Hannah," he said gently, "what are you doing?" I did not look up. "The slideshow." He sat across from me. "Your mom's birthday slideshow?" "The one she asked me to prepare. The one she wanted sent to the whole family tomorrow morning." I clicked through the folder I had built over the past month. Baby pictures, holiday photos, family vacations, carefully selected moments of Evelyn smiling beside grandchildren, Evelyn blowing out candles, Evelyn holding Aiden's trophies, Evelyn laughing at Thanksgiving while Lily sat half-hidden behind an adult's chair. I had made the original slideshow exactly the way she wanted because that was what I had always done. I made her look warm. I made her look fair. I made the family look whole. But now, looking at the images one after another, I saw the truth hiding in plain sight. Lily and Ethan were often at the edges. Sometimes they were cropped halfway out. Sometimes they were absent from gatherings my mother had later described as all the grandchildren together. Aiden was always centered, always beside her, always lit by the camera flash and by her pride. "I'm not going to attack her," I said before. "I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to call her names. I'm just going to stop editing the truth to protect her." Mark's expression changed slowly, grief giving way to understanding. "Show me." So I did. I pulled in the photo from last Easter, where Aiden held a golden egg my mother had hidden specially for him, while Lily and Ethan stood behind the fence, watching. I added the Christmas picture where my mother's caption read, "My greatest blessings, though my children were not in the frame." I added screenshots of messages where she declined Lily's school reading night because Aiden had a math showcase, and where she told me Ethan's kindergarten concert was too far to drive, before posting from Aiden's baseball game the same afternoon. I added the seating chart from tonight, the one I had found attached to the event planning email she had sent me by accident 3 days earlier. I had not noticed the note then because I had been busy confirming flowers. Now I zoomed in on the line written in my mother's own neat digital text. "Main table. Proud grandchildren only." My stomach turned. Mark leaned closer, his face hardening. "She wrote that?" "Yes." My voice sounded distant. "She actually wrote it." I sat back, letting the sentence settle around us. This was no misunderstanding, no shortage of chairs, no accidental oversight caused by party stress. My mother had designed humiliation and labeled it pride. The original slideshow had been titled Evelyn at 70. A Legacy of Love. I deleted the title. For a long time, I stared at the blank first slide. Then I typed a new one. The children left away from the family table. Mark did not tell me to calm down. He did not ask if I was sure. He only reached across the table and covered my hand with his. By midnight, the new slideshow was almost finished. No insults. No dramatic music. No ugly captions. Just dates, photos, screenshots, and one sentence that appeared between each section in plain white letters on a black background. This is not a misunderstanding. This is a pattern. By 2 in the morning, the house was silent, except for the soft ticking of the kitchen clock and the occasional creak of the old heating vents pushing warm air through the walls. Lily and Ethan were asleep upstairs in the same room, their hurt finally softened by exhaustion, while Mark and I sat at the kitchen table with the glow of my laptop between us like a small, dangerous fire. The slideshow had started as a birthday tribute, a polished little film my mother could send to relatives and friends with the caption, 70 years of love, family, and legacy. She had wanted soft music, flattering photos, and a few lines about the values she had passed down. She had wanted the version of herself she sold to the world, graceful, generous, adored. For years, I had helped her sell that version. I had cropped photos, smoothed over absences, chosen angles that made neglect look accidental, and arranged memories into something warm enough to hide the cold places. But that night, after watching my children stand beside a folding table near the kitchen and ask where their name cards were, my hands refused to keep polishing the lie. I removed the music first. It felt wrong to let piano notes soften what had happened. Then I removed the opening title, Evelyn at 70, A Legacy of Love, and replaced it with plain white words on a black screen. The children left away from the family table. Mark read it and exhaled slowly, not in doubt, but because truth has a weight even when you are ready to lift it. The first section showed old family dinners. At first glance, they looked normal. Thanksgiving tables, Christmas mornings, backyard barbecues, Easter egg hunts. But I paused each image long enough for the pattern to reveal itself. Aiden at the center beside my mother, Caleb behind him, smiling with the relaxed confidence of a man who had never had to wonder whether the family story included him. Lily near the edge, half hidden behind an adult's shoulder. Ethan standing slightly apart, holding a plastic cup, looking toward the group instead of into the camera. I added small captions with dates and places, nothing emotional, nothing exaggerated. Thanksgiving, 2 years ago. Lily and Ethan not seated with grandchildren. Christmas morning last year. Aiden opens personalized gift. Lily and Ethan receive unwrapped dollar store kits. Easter brunch, Aiden photographed with grandma. Lily and Ethan not included in final album. The next section was screenshots. My mother canceling on Lily's school reading night because, as she wrote, weeknights are difficult for me. 3 hours later, she had posted photos from Aiden's math showcase with the caption, I never miss the moments that matter. My mother telling me Ethan's kindergarten concert was too far to drive, then commenting under Stephanie's picture from Aiden's baseball game that same afternoon. Anything for my champion. My mother forgetting Lily's birthday until 2 weeks later, then sending Aiden a gift card on the exact morning he won a science fair ribbon. Each screenshot appeared quietly, then faded into the same sentence. This is not a misunderstanding. This is a pattern. By the time I reached the final section, my chest felt hollow and sharp at the same time. I inserted a photo of the dining room from earlier that evening, taken before the guests had arrived. My mother had sent it to me herself, proud of the table design. The grandchildren table shone beneath the chandelier, every name card visible except the 2 that did not exist. Then I added the seating chart she had emailed me 3 days before the party. I zoomed in slowly on the typed note I had missed the first time. Main table, proud grandchildren only. Mark's hand tightened around mine when those words filled the screen. I did not add commentary. I did not need to. Some sentences convict themselves. The slideshow ended with one final card. My children will not be taught that love is earned by achievement, seating, applause, or comparison. We are stepping away from family events where children are ranked instead of loved. Anyone who wants a relationship with Lily and Ethan may begin with basic respect. I watched the ending twice, waiting for guilt to arrive. I had expected guilt. Guilt had always arrived before, trained and punctual, whispering that maybe I was overreacting. Maybe my mother would be humiliated. Maybe I should protect the family from seeing itself too clearly. But the guilt did not come. In its place was grief, and beneath the grief, a steadiness I had never felt after confronting my mother. At 7:00 a.m., the slideshow sent automatically to the family group chat, exactly as my mother had asked me to schedule it days earlier. She had wanted everyone to wake up to her legacy. They did. At 7:04, my phone rang. I was standing at the stove making pancakes because Lily and Ethan loved them, and because ordinary care felt like the only prayer I knew that morning. My mother's name flashed across the screen. I let it ring. At 7:05, it rang again. At 7:06, the first text arrived. Take that down immediately. At 7:07, another. How could you do this to me on my birthday weekend? At 7:08, a third. You are humiliating your own mother. I flipped a pancake and watched the edges bubble. Mark stood by the counter with his coffee, reading the messages over my shoulder. You don't have to answer, he said. I know. The words felt even stronger than they had the night before. I did not owe her panic. I did not owe her a performance of regret. At 7:15, Caleb called Mark instead of me, which told me everything about how the family system still worked. Men called men when they wanted the women contained. Mark put him on speaker without greeting him. Caleb's voice came through sharp and furious. What the hell is wrong with Hannah? Mark leaned against the counter. Good morning to you too. Do not play calm with me, Mom is crying. Aiden saw part of that video. Everyone is messaging us. This is insane. I turned the heat lower on the stove and said, was anything in it false? Silence. Not long, but long enough to matter. That is not the point, Caleb snapped. It is exactly the point, I said. You put my son in the middle of this. No, Caleb. Mom put all the children in the middle when she ranked them at a birthday dinner. His voice dropped, angrier now because he had no easy answer. Aiden is 10. So is June. Lily is 8. Ethan is 6. Funny how everyone remembers children are children only when Aiden feels uncomfortable. Mark looked at me, his eyes steady. Caleb breathed hard through the phone. You have always wanted to punish him for being loved. That one almost made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because the old accusation had become so predictable it no longer had teeth. No, I said. I want him to learn that being loved does not require other children to be made smaller. Caleb hung up. By 8:00, the group chat had become a courtroom my mother could not control. At first, there were the usual messages asking everyone to calm down, as though calmness had ever protected anyone but the person who caused the harm. Then Aunt Linda wrote, I did notice the seating last night, and I should have said something. I am sorry. A few minutes later, Rachel wrote, My son asked once why Grandma only gives speeches about Aiden. I told him not to be jealous. I regret that now. Then Marissa sent a message that made my throat tighten. June cried after the party and asked if Grandma only loves winners. The chat went quiet after that. My mother finally wrote one line. Hannah has always been dramatic and jealous of Caleb. For the first time in my life, no one rushed to agree. That silence was the first real crack in her perfect family image. At noon, she tried again privately, claiming the folding table had been a practical choice, claiming the gift boxes were meaningless, claiming the words, proud grandchildren, had been misunderstood. I replied with the screenshot of her own seating chart and circled the line in red. Main table, proud grandchildren only. Then I wrote, You did not run out of room. You ran out of kindness. She did not answer for almost an hour. When she finally did, the message was shorter than I expected. You will regret exposing me. I looked up from the phone toward the living room, where Lily and Ethan were drawing a new picture together on the floor. This time, the table was round. No head seat, no special chair, everyone close enough to reach each other. I saved my mother's message, not because I wanted to use it, but because I was finally learning that keeping proof was not bitterness. Sometimes it was how a woman stopped being talked out of the truth. That evening, just as Mark and I were cleaning up dinner, the doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw my mother standing on our porch in her cream coat, holding two small white children's chairs with gold bows tied around the backs, as if the injury had been furniture and she had come to replace it. For a moment, I simply stared through the front window, trying to understand what my mother was holding. Because the sight was so absurd, it took my anger a few seconds to catch up. Two small white wooden chairs stood on the porch beside her, each one polished, expensive-looking, and tied with a gold bow around the back. They looked like props from a boutique children's party, the kind of thing photographed beside balloons and cake for people who cared deeply about appearances, and very little about what those appearances were meant to hide. My mother stood behind them in her cream coat, chin lifted, pearls at her throat, as if she had arrived with a solution, instead of proof that she still did not understand the injury. Mark came to stand beside me. Do you want me to answer? He asked quietly. I looked toward the living room, where Lily and Ethan were sitting on the floor drawing their new family table, A round one with no head chair, no special place, no child pushed toward the edge. Ethan had given everyone a giant plate of pancakes in the drawing because he said pancakes made people nicer. Lily had drawn all the chairs the same size. That detail had nearly broken me. "No," I said. "I'll handle it." Mark nodded, but he stayed close. When I opened the door, my mother's eyes moved quickly past me, scanning the hallway for the children. I stepped outside and pulled the door mostly closed behind me. Her smile tightened. "I came to fix this," she said before I could speak. "No phone calls, no drama, just a simple solution." She gestured toward the chairs as if unveiling a gift. "I bought these for Lily and Ethan, their own special chairs. Next time they can bring them and sit wherever they feel comfortable." I looked at the chairs, then at her. "Next time?" Her expression flickered. "At the next family dinner. Obviously, last night got out of hand, and I think everyone said things they did not mean." "You mean when you said the main table was for proud grandchildren only?" Her mouth pinched. "You are determined to use the worst possible interpretation. There is no good interpretation of making two children sit beside the kitchen because they did not impress you enough." She inhaled sharply and glanced toward the neighboring house. That glance told me more than her words. Even now, standing on my porch after my children had cried over a table she designed to exclude them, she was still worried about being seen. "Keep your voice down," she said. "Mrs. Callahan is always at that window." I almost laughed. Not because anything was funny, but because the truth had become so obvious it was insulting. "That is what you are worried about?" I asked. "The neighbors? I am worried about this family being torn apart because you cannot let one seating arrangement go. This is not about chairs, Mom." I pointed toward the two white props on the porch. "And my children do not need special chairs. They need basic respect." Her eyes filled, fast and practiced. "I am trying, Hannah. I went out this morning and bought these with my own money. Do you know how humiliating it was to walk into that store after you sent that video to everyone? Do you know what Ethan asked me in the car after we left?" She blinked, thrown by the shift. "What?" "He asked if he was not good enough for the family table." The tears in her eyes paused, as if even they had to decide whether they were real. "He said that?" "Yes. Your 6-year-old grandson thought he had failed some invisible test for belonging." My mother looked down at the chairs. For one brief second, something like shame crossed her face, but it did not stay. Pride stepped in front of it. "That was not my intention." "Then what was your intention?" She lifted her chin. "To encourage children to work hard, to show them that effort matters." Lily wrote a story that made her teacher cry. Ethan helped a new boy in his class every day for 2 weeks, because the boy did not speak English yet. They are kind, thoughtful children. But because their achievements did not make good dinner speeches, you decided they belonged by the kitchen. Her face hardened. "You have always resented how I celebrate Caleb's family." There it was again, the old accusation, polished and ready. I had spent most of my life defending myself against it, trying to prove I was not jealous, not bitter, not dramatic. But standing there between my mother and my children, with 2 ridiculous chairs on the porch like evidence of her blindness, I realized I no longer needed to argue with a lie to be free of it. "I do not resent Caleb's family," I said. "I resent the way you make every other child pay for your need to worship them." She recoiled as if I had slapped her. "How dare you speak to me like that after everything I have done for this family?" "Everything you have done does not cancel what you did last night. It was my 70th birthday. And you used it to rank children." Her eyes flashed. "You exposed me." "No," I said. "I stopped hiding you." The words landed hard. For the first time, my mother had no immediate answer. She gripped the back of one chair, the gold bow crushed beneath her fingers. From inside the house, I heard a floorboard creak. I turned slightly and saw Ethan standing in the hallway behind the glass, his small face worried. Lily stood behind him. My mother saw them too and immediately shifted into sweetness, lifting one hand. "Ethan, sweetheart, Grandma brought you a chair." I stepped directly in front of the window. "Do not." My mother froze. "Excuse me?" "Do not call to them. Do not use gifts, chairs, tears, or that soft voice to reach around me." Her mouth opened, offended. "I am their grandmother." "Then act like one." The silence after that felt enormous. Ethan disappeared from the window, and I was grateful. My mother's eyes went wet again, but this time her anger burned through the tears. "You are being cruel." "No, I am being clear." "You are punishing me." "No, I am protecting them." From a chair? From the lesson behind it. I bent, picked up one of the little chairs, and placed it back toward her. Take them back. Donate them. Burn them. I do not care. But they are not coming into my house. Her face twisted. You are enjoying this. I shook my head. I hate this. I hate that it took me this long. I hate that my daughter had to draw herself out of a family picture before I finally stopped hoping you would become fair on your own. That struck something. My mother looked suddenly older, not softer, just exposed. For a moment I thought she might say she was sorry. Not for being seen, not for being embarrassed. Actually sorry. But then she stepped back, lifted one chair awkwardly under her arm, and said, "Your father would be ashamed of what you are doing." My father had been gone 6 years. She still knew how to pull his memory from the grave and place it between us like a weapon. This time, I did not pick it up. Dad would have sat with the kids by the kitchen, I said. And that is the difference between him and you. Her face went pale. She gathered the second chair, turned, and walked down the porch steps without another word. I watched her load both chairs into the back of her car, gold bows crushed and crooked, and drive away. When I went back inside, Ethan was sitting on the bottom stair. Lily stood beside him, holding the drawing of the round table. Grandma looked mad, Ethan said. I sat down on the step below him. She was mad. Because we did not take the chairs? Lily asked. Because she wanted the chairs to fix something that chairs cannot fix. Ethan frowned. What can fix it? I looked at both of them and wished the answer were easier. Honesty, a real apology, changed behavior, and time. Lily studied my face. Do we have to make her feel better? The question hit the deepest part of me, because I had spent my childhood doing exactly that. Managing my mother's moods, softening her shame, carrying peace like a tray no one else wanted to touch. I took Lily's hand. No, children are not responsible for fixing grown-ups who hurt them. She leaned against my shoulder, and Ethan leaned against the other side, and for a while we sat on the stairs like that, building a new rule inside our home. Later that afternoon, Caleb called. I almost let it go to voicemail, but Mark looked at me and said, "You do not have to answer, but if you do, I'm here." I answered and put it on speaker. Caleb sounded tired before he sounded angry. Aiden is upset. I closed my eyes. Good afternoon to you too. He saw the slideshow. Kids at school might hear about it if people talk. He thinks everyone is mad at him. Did you tell him why people are upset? He is 10, Hannah. So are other children. That did not matter when Mom humiliated mine. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, lower. He asked me if Grandma only loves him because he wins. I opened my eyes. What did you say? Caleb breathed out slowly. I did not know what to say. For the first time all day, my anger loosened enough for sadness to enter. Tell him no child should have to win to be loved. Then show him by how you treat the other kids. Mom made me think being chosen meant being loved, he said, almost to himself. I looked toward Lily and Ethan's round table drawing on the coffee table, and she made the rest of us think being ignored meant we failed. Caleb did not argue. That silence was the closest thing to agreement I had ever heard from him. 2 days later, a letter arrived from my mother. I waited until the children were asleep before opening it. The first line made me stop breathing. When I was a little girl, my mother always made me sit near the kitchen while my brother sat beside my father. I read the sentence twice. She wrote about birthdays where her brother blew out candles first, dinners where he was served first, praise that always landed on him while she learned to be useful and quiet. She wrote that when Caleb was born, she promised herself her son would never feel unwanted. She wrote that Aiden's achievements made her feel like she had finally joined the winning side of the family. For one page, my mother almost told the truth. Then came the line that proved she still had not reached it. But you exposed me in front of everyone, Hannah, and I do not know how to forgive that. I set the letter down. Mark read it over my shoulder and sighed. She almost got there. I looked upstairs, toward the rooms where my children were sleeping. Almost does not protect them. I did not answer my mother's letter that night, because some words are not bridges, they are mirrors, and I needed her to sit with the reflection before I helped her look away. For the first time in my life, I did not rush to soothe her shame. I did not call to explain what she should already understand. I did not soften the sentence she had written with her own hand. I do not know how to forgive that. She was asking forgiveness for being exposed, not for the children she had wounded. And until she could tell the difference, there was nothing safe to rebuild. 3 days passed, then a week, then 2. My mother sent short messages at first, stiff little offerings wrapped in pride. I hope the children are well. I am still very hurt. I never meant for things to go this far. I did not reply to the parts that centered her pain. When she asked about Lily and Ethan, I answered only what was necessary. They are safe. They are healing. They need space. The family group chat changed too. It did not become healthy overnight. Families built on silence do not suddenly speak truth with grace just because one slideshow makes denial harder. But the old rhythm broke. Aunt Linda called me and cried. Not loudly, not dramatically, just with the quiet grief of a woman realizing she had watched too much and named too little. Rachel apologized for telling her son not to be jealous when he noticed the same pattern years earlier. Marissa told me June had started asking questions about why love in our family always seemed to come with scoreboards. Even Caleb called again, and this time he did not start with anger. He said Aiden had been quieter than usual. He said Aiden asked whether Grandma would still invite him if he stopped winning things. Caleb sounded frightened by the question, not because it accused him, but because it opened a door he had spent his life pretending was a wall. I thought being chosen meant I was safe, he told me. I did not realize it made everyone else unsafe. I sat at my kitchen table, watching Lily and Ethan build a blanket fort in the living room, and said, "That is what favoritism does. It hurts the child pushed out, and it traps the child placed on the pedestal." He was silent for a long moment. Then he whispered, "Mom made us all compete for air." That was the first honest sentence my brother had ever said about our childhood. A month after the birthday dinner, my mother asked to meet. I almost said no. Part of me wanted no more conversations, no more explanations, no more emotional labor spent teaching an adult that children should not be ranked like trophies. But Mark reminded me that meeting her did not mean forgiving her. It meant gathering information. So we agreed to 1 hour at a cafe halfway between our homes. No children, no gifts, no surprise chairs, no relatives. When we arrived, my mother was already there, sitting very straight with both hands wrapped around a cup she had not touched. She looked smaller than she had on her porch, not weak, but less polished, as if the last few weeks had worn away some of the lacquer. "Thank you for coming," she said. I sat across from her. Mark sat beside me. "We are here to listen," I said, "but we are not here to be persuaded back into normal. Normal is what hurt them." My mother flinched at that, and for once she did not deny it immediately. She looked down at her cup. "I have been thinking about the letter." "Which part?" I asked. Her fingers tightened. "The part about my brother." I waited. She swallowed. "When I was little, my mother believed boys carried the family name, and girls carried the dishes. My brother sat beside my father. He was served first. If he spoke, everyone listened. If I spoke, I was told to help in the kitchen. Every birthday, every holiday, every family dinner, there was a place that meant you mattered and a place that meant you were useful. I spent my whole childhood near the kitchen, watching him be loved." Her voice cracked, but I did not reach for her hand. I had spent too many years mistaking her pain for permission to forget mine. "And when Caleb was born," she continued, "I told myself my child would never feel that. I thought if I made him proud, strong, admired, then I had beaten what happened to me." "But you did not beat it," I said quietly. "You moved it." Her eyes lifted to mine, wet and defensive. "I did not see it that way." "That does not change what you did." She looked toward the window, where strangers passed by with coffee cups and errands, living ordinary lives while our family history sat open between us like a wound. "When I saw you raising your children without needing my approval, it made me angry," she admitted. The words came slowly, like each one had to be dragged past her pride. "You were not desperate for me the way I was desperate for my mother. You did not make Lily compete. You praised Ethan for kindness, not for winning. I told myself you were making them soft. But the truth is, I wanted you to feel what I had felt. I wanted you to know what it was like to watch someone else be chosen." Mark went still beside me. I felt the sentence move through me, cold and final. There it was. Not confusion. Not lack of space. Not a practical mistake. The root. The rot. "So you used my children," I said. My mother closed her eyes. "Yes." "You turned Lily and Ethan into your childhood punishment." Her face crumpled, but this time she did not argue. "Yes." The apology that followed was not perfect, but it was different from everything she had said before. She did not say "if you were hurt." She did not say "but you embarrassed me." She did not ask when things could return to normal. She said, "I was cruel to them. I was cruel because I was hurt, and that is not an excuse. I wanted power over a pain I never healed, and I put it on children who trusted me. I listened, and I let the words be true without letting them erase the damage. Here's what happens now," I said. "You do not see Lily or Ethan until they are ready, and until we believe you can be around them without making your shame their responsibility. You go to therapy. You write them letters, but you give those letters to me first. You apologize to the other grandchildren you have compared, ignored, or ranked. You speak to Caleb and Aiden honestly about the pedestal you built. And you stop calling exposure betrayal when the real betrayal was what you did in secret." My mother wiped her face with a napkin. "Will you ever forgive me?" I looked at her for a long time. "I do not know, but forgiveness is not the first step. Safety is." 6 months passed before Lily and Ethan saw her again. In those 6 months, my mother did something I had never seen her do. She continued without applause. She went to therapy. She wrote letters and rewrote them when I told her they still centered herself. She apologized to June in a phone call Marissa supervised. She admitted to Caleb that she had turned him into proof of her worth instead of loving him freely. She stopped sending gifts. She stopped asking me to make the children call. She stopped demanding updates framed as grandmother rights. When the first meeting finally happened, it was at a public park on a bright Saturday morning. Lily held my hand on one side. Ethan held Mark's on the other. My mother stood near a bench with nothing in her hands. No bags. No chairs. No envelopes. Ethan noticed first. "Did you bring presents?" he asked. My mother knelt slowly, careful not to come too close. "No," she said. "I brought an apology." Lily watched her with guarded eyes. My mother took a breath. "I was wrong to make you sit away from the family table. I was wrong to make you feel like you had to be impressive to belong. You were not bad. You were not less important. I was unfair, and I hurt you." Ethan looked at me, and I nodded once, letting him know he did not have to answer. Lily asked, "Why did you do it?" My mother's eyes filled, but she kept her voice steady. "Because when I was little, someone made me feel left out, and I never learned how to heal it. But that was my job, not yours. I should never have passed that hurt to you." Ethan thought about that. "Do we have to hug you?" My mother shook her head immediately. "No. You never have to hug me to make me feel better." That was the first sentence that made Lily's shoulders loosen. Not forgiveness, not trust. Just the smallest proof that something might be changing. The next year, I hosted dinner at my own house. No main table. No children's table. No speeches about winners. We pushed 2 tables together in the living room and let the kids choose their own seats. Aiden sat beside Ethan and asked about dinosaurs. June helped Lily draw placemats for everyone. My mother came for 1 hour, because boundaries are strongest when they are clear. Lily placed a new drawing beside her plate. In it, the table was round, and every chair was the same size. My mother opened it immediately, read the little note on the back, and cried silently without asking anyone to comfort her. I watched from across the room as my daughter kept eating, free from the old family job of managing an adult's emotions, and I realized that was the victory. Not revenge. Not humiliation. Not even the slideshow. The victory was a house where children did not have to earn a place, where love was not handed out according to performance, where a mother could stand up from a cruel table and build a better one. So if you have ever been told that family pain should be hidden to protect someone's image, remember this: silence does not keep a family whole. It only keeps the wrong person comfortable. And if this story touched you, leave a comment below and tell me what you believe matters more: forgiving family because they are family, or rebuilding trust only when their behavior truly changes. Like, share, and subscribe for more stories about truth, boundaries, and the courage to break the cycles our children were never meant to inherit.